i-netradio.com. i-netradio.com. Добрый день, и добро пожаловать. This is Springtime in Moscow with your hosts James Tuthill and Steven Stimson. We've got some Russian with a little American, and we're serious with a little humor. So Jim, what's going on in the world today?
Steve, thank you for the great introduction. I'm Jim Tuthill, and this is Springtime in Moscow. Springtime in Moscow is now on YouTube. Just put in Springtime in Moscow with no spaces and we'll come right up. Of course, we are here on i-netradio.com, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we're also on powertalk.com, pwrtalk.com, where we're the feature show every Friday evening from 8 to 10 p.m., and we're on 3 times a day. Today, I have Jake Danishevsky with me from New Jersey, and we're going to talk a little bit about some issues that are going on in Russia and the United States simultaneously, and some of the common problems that they have. Jake, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Jim. How are you?
Great. It's good to hear from you. I know you have a little bit of an allergy, and I hope everything goes well for you, okay?
Sorry about it.
Okay. If you were down here in Miami, you wouldn't have any allergies. You'd be in perfect condition. Yes. Okay.
I agree.
Jake, I want to start off on a hot topic. Since a man was inaugurated on January 20th, 1981, and we'll leave him out of the equation this morning, the Republican Party has, in my opinion, has constantly used abortion as a political tool in order to gain adherence to their cause. I'm not sure that they're really interested in abortion or family values or any of that. One of their senators from Idaho was found in a airport bathroom stall negotiating a homosexual affair. One of their senators down in Louisiana was with multiple prostitutes. I'm not saying the Democrats don't do it too.
Exactly.
But abortion is used strictly as a political tool, in my opinion, in this country. And a man back in the 80s figured out that it was a very, very strong political tool and that he could use it to his advantage. There is a book called Super Mob, in which it's fairly well documented from an affidavit. In fact, that man raped a woman out in Hollywood. So you never know. Things are unusual. I want to bring to your attention a story that came out at the end of last week in the United States. Dr. Kermit Gosnell was sentenced to life in prison without parole for the murder of a baby born alive in a botched abortion. What happened was Dr. Gosnell had done many abortions. He started a clinic with the intentions of helping women who had little ability to afford abortions, but maybe things had just gotten out of hand along the way. So what happened was this baby was born alive, and he snipped its neck with scissors in order to kill it, because the baby, he figured during the abortion, would be dead. When the baby wasn't dead, he killed the baby, and that's what we call first-degree murder in the United States. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of abortion. If I were in a situation with a woman and she got pregnant, I probably would want to have the child. I'm really not a fan of abortion, but I think that women do have a right to choose because sometimes abortions are medically necessary. And Roe versus Wade, nobody ever reads Roe versus Wade, but I read Roe versus Wade.
I read it too.
And Justice Blackmun based most of that opinion really not too much on constitutional considerations, but on the relationship between a doctor and the patient and medical decisions that were going to be made. I mean, anybody who reads it will know that. Now, there were concurring opinions and dissenting opinions, but that was his opinion. It was based on the doctor-patient relationship. So here it is. It's back in the news again. And we know in reality, the Democrats never bring this topic up. The Republicans bring it up because they want their base down south, the Christian fundamentalists, to
James,
get enthralled. Now, I want to go into one thing. This is what I'm going to be asking you about. In Russia, in October of 2011, which is roughly, I guess, a year and a half ago, the Russian parliament passed a law restricting abortion to the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. That's what I guess we would call the first trimester. If it takes 9 months to have a baby, that's roughly 36 weeks, and that's about 12 weeks for the first third. And they have up to 22 weeks if the pregnancy was a result of rape, and for medical necessity, it can be performed at any point during the pregnancy. Okay? Now, what did they do? They did some of the things that are happening here in the southern states like Virginia. They have imposed a mandatory waiting period of 2 to 7 days before an abortion can be performed. That's in Russia, so that the woman can reconsider her decision. Abortion can only be performed in licensed institutions and by physicians who have specialized training. Here in the United States, in Mississippi and Alabama, they recently tried to make sure that only doctors with admitting privileges and credentials at a hospital could do it. And a doctor can refuse to perform an abortion also in Russia. Mr. Medvedev has now weighed in. He wants to put severe restrictions on abortion in order to combat a falling birth rate and plunging population. And he wants restrictions, making abortion providers devote 10% of their advertising costs describing the dangers of abortions to a woman's health, and some other things, okay? But as we know, over time, over the Soviet Union and in Russia, Russia has had one of the highest abortion rates in the world. I don't think that there's really any doubt about that, okay? In 2004, Russia did have the highest number of abortions per woman of childbearing age, according to the United Nations. And in 2009, in terms of total number, China had over 13 million abortions out of a population of 1.3 billion, and Russia had 1.2 million out of 143 million. For some reason, I think I know why, but you can tell me. Russia and the Soviet Union have always had a very high rate of abortion. So this is my first question to you, Jake. You come from Ukraine, which is sort of part of the Russian world.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the general common attitude in the Russian world about abortion, including well, I know what the attitude of the church is, but including the attitude of the church, the state, and the average man in the street, the average woman in the street? What's the thought about abortion?
Well, first of all, I don't have all the facts. Obviously, you have a lot of facts, numbers. So let me start by saying you had the longest one-man show for a while there.
Yes, but can I just interject one thing?
Well, let me
say something funny to you. A lady.
No, let me reflect on what you said.
Oh, all right. But I was going to tell you a funny story.
No. Go ahead. If you want to tell me the story, and then I'll reflect.
A lady from Perm, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, last week sent me an email. She said, "Love the way you handle the show. I think you should do a monologue."
Well, you did do a monologue for a while there. I mean, which is interesting. But no, I mean, listen. I mean, you have a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics. First thing, let me address as you presented them, so this way we can go in order.
Yes.
You said that Republicans, since Obama's inauguration, has been using it as a tool. Listen, abortion, gay marriage, and many social points, many other issues have been used as a tool on both sides. Do you agree on that? I mean, they've been used by Obama administrations. They've been used by Clinton. They've been used by Bush. They've been used by many, many presidents. But here's the difference on abortion. See, I don't have strong point on abortion. I'm a Jewish man, right? but I'm not very religious. I'm as religious and as I can be, but I don't have a strong point on abortion because, first of all, you don't know what the situation is. I don't know all the medical reasons. I don't read enough about abortion, and I don't want to chime in on something I truly don't know. Now, having said that, Dr. Gosner, or however you pronounce his name, I can't remember how to
I
properly.
think it's Gosnell, I think.
Gosnell,
Yeah.
Gosnell, he's a murderer, and you agree on that, and I agree on that. Now, having said that, this guy was praised and actually defended by Planned Parenthood, and Obama defended Planned Parenthood. Now, Planned Parenthood does not perform any of the tests that they say that it performs. Planned Parenthood was designed by the person who designed it. I keep mispronouncing her name, and I probably will butcher her name if I say it, but she designed Planned Parenthood for one reason. If you notice, which neighborhoods do they mostly put the clinics from Planned Parenthood? They put it in black neighborhoods, they put it in poor neighborhoods. So her statement was very racial. And I don't want to repeat her statement when she first started Planned Parenthood, but Obama praised them. So now, having said that, don't you think it requires some attention that a president of the United States, as you call him, praises an organization that truly created an organization to do population control in specific neighborhoods? Isn't it kind of insulting to some people that she would do that and she's being praised for it? Now, that's the only issue I have with the Planned Parenthood, with the abortion, and everything else. Now, is it murder? Yes, it is. In some cases, I mean, you have this doctor who truly killed babies after they were born. I mean, Obama even said a while back, that's the problem Republicans have with Obama. He said that he's for abortion in the third trimester. That's murder. That's murder in anybody's book. Now, what does Russia do? I mean, the only thing I can say about Russia and the numbers, I mean, China has population control, so I'm not surprised about Chinese numbers because I believe they have 1.5 babies per family population control or something like that. But Russia, all I can say is I don't know the numbers. I mean, they didn't exactly educate people in a lot of things, like for parents to be parents to talk to their kids about sexual relations. It was all a taboo subject. So, for example, when I was growing up, for me to find out anything, like we left when I was almost 14 years old. I never actually talked to my dad in Russia about birds and the bees because they truly do not, it becomes like a taboo subject. My mom would have never talked to me about it, and my father was embarrassed to start the conversation because they make sex and sexual relations sort of like a very uncomfortable topic. So if parents talk to kids, maybe we wouldn't see the numbers that you said you do. I don't know the numbers. I don't know the statistics on the Russian abortion and the population that has premarital sex. I don't know about that. But regardless, I mean, I think that's the reason why. Does that somehow answer your question?
Yes, I'm going to follow up with you a little bit, but I do want to tell you one other funny thing. There's a game show in America called Jeopardy, and there's this very sanctimonious, in my opinion, pompous game show host named Alex Trebek. And when the contestant gets the question wrong, he looks up and he's very proud and he tells them the correct answer. You know why he has the correct answer?
Because he has it in front of him.
Because somebody gave it to him, okay?
I know.
Now, me, I don't stay up all night researching abortion in Russia, okay?
I understand.
But what I do is I go to Wikipedia, all right? And it tells me that that at the time of the fall of the Soviet Union, 86%, I don't know if this is true, but Wikipedia says it's true, 86% of women over the age of 15 had had at least one abortion. They said the average 25-year-old woman had had 3 abortions, and then, this may be a little over the top, okay? I take everything with a grain of salt, especially with Wikipedia. But sometimes when they cite statistics like the UN, I assume they're correct. They say some women had had more than 20 abortions.
Okay. I mean, that's a big number. I don't know how the woman.
Yeah. Okay.
would survive so many.
All right. I don't either.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so yeah, I'm not going to
I don't know either.
that.
They said the early years of the Russian Federation were marked by declining rates of fertility and abortion and increased access to and use of preventive birth control. Yeah, if you use condoms and you use the pill, I suppose you don't need to have an abortion. Okay,
well, in most cases, those things are not 100%.
No, I understand. Yeah. I understand.
I mean, listen, it's a very to some people it's a very touchy subject. Some people have religious views. So if you say it's a political view from Republicans, no, I mean it's not, because some people truly do religiously, are against abortions. And I mean, listen, there is a valid reason behind it, because it does traumatize a woman. Like I said, I'm not going to talk too much about it because I'm not a strong person and I don't know all the facts. But I want to say that, what this doctor did was a crime. It was a murder.
Okay.
And let's leave it at that.
But this is what I want to know. When you were over in Ukraine, and you probably still have some knowledge of Ukraine and what's going on in Russia, these are my biggest questions. Was abortion a big political issue? Was abortion an issue that was in the newspapers quite a bit? And was abortion an issue that people talked about? Or maybe your answer to all three questions is no. I don't know.
You know what? In the Soviet society, like when you have government that controls everything,
yeah.
None of the things are political or issues, because government tells you what's an issue. Not. I mean, there's a lot of. Where do you get most of your news? I mean, most of your news come from reading or sources of media. I mean, in Soviet Union, you really didn't have too much reading that was allowed. If you had a magazine that was not appropriate for reading, you could actually you could be punished just for reading or getting your hands on a magazine like that. And you really didn't have too much news going from coming in from Russian media. So if you got the news from BBC, or you were fortunate enough to overhear something, it was great. Otherwise, people use their common sense and try to figure things out on their own. So, I mean, was it a political? I mean, they didn't have to use anything politically because they controlled everything.
Well, in the Russian mindset today, in 2012, 2013, do you think that a woman would feel, obviously to get pregnant, there has to be a man involved, unless you're artificially inseminated or something. But generally, you have to have a man involved. Would a woman in the Russian world today, which I guess would include Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, I don't know, maybe pockets of other places, do you think a woman would be more inclined to make the decision whether to have an abortion by herself and on her own without consulting the father of this potential child?
I mean, it all depends on a case-to-case basis. I mean, once again, I mean, people have values. Even if it's a different society, people have different values. I mean, now that there is no Soviet Union, people actually turn to religion. Some people don't turn to religion. I mean, honestly, I couldn't tell you if it's more or less, because it's all on a case-to-case basis. I mean, Russian, American, Chinese, Italian, Japanese. I mean, you take any people. I mean, it's all their personal belief, their personal values, and should it be political? No, but both sides use it politically. Don't you agree? I mean, look, Obama stabs at it every chance he gets. I mean, he was speaking out on the behalf of Planned Parenthood. He was praising them. So was that not political? Of course it was political. He was trying to say that, they're this great organization that does so much for community, when in reality, they're actually an organization that was built on lies and the principles to control population of certain groups, which is terrible. Terrible. I mean, do I say that, Republicans didn't use it as a political? Maybe, but listen, I mean, I don't talk too much about abortion because I don't know enough about it.
Well, this is all I can say. Yes, President Obama has said favorable things about Planned Parenthood. But on the other side, the Republicans, every chance they get, have tried to cut funding and money to Planned Parenthood.
Well, yes, because it's an organization that's based on lies. Planned Parenthood does not provide the tests that they say they provide. They do not provide all kinds of medical treatments and all that. They do not. They do not. And that's why, to fund an organization that is based on lies is, I mean, you wanna have an abortion, you wanna pay for abortion. It's not my right to tell you. It's not. But for me to pay for something that I don't agree with, it's not right. It's not
So
right.
I think what you're saying is that you feel that Planned
I
Parenthood's only purpose is to get the woman through the door, get her an abortion, and get her out the door.
More or less. I mean, Planned Parenthood is an organization that truly does not do more than that. I read a little bit about him. I saw what's her name? I keep forgetting. Seeger, Margaret. I butcher her name every time.
Well,
But
I don't know her name.
she said, and I mean, I'm not going to quote, I'm going to paraphrase, that we can put a clinic, an abortion clinic in a black neighborhood and control the way they have, the way their population grows. I mean, this was terrible. And now first black president supposedly praises that type of organization. I mean, and you tell me in the last show, you were telling me that some people are racist because they call Obama out on certain policies. I mean, this is the worst thing that you could do to a black community, to praise Planned Parenthood. And I mean, black community does not realize this is not a service. This is actually disservice to their community.
Well,
But
Jake, let me just say one thing to you. I mean, I deal in reality. I try
okay,
to speak in reality.
so do I.
In polite society in America for the last 40 years, if you went to a dinner or you went to a party or you went to a picnic with middle class people or upper middle class people or upper class people, they'd whisper and they'd say, those blacks, they're like bunnies. All they do is have sex and have children that go on welfare. So there's always been this undercurrent in the United States. Huge, huge. Okay. That's probably the biggest derogatory comment made about African Americans is the amount of children they have. So it's always been a hot topic. White Americans have always felt that black Americans are having too many babies. And one of the things that they don't like about that is they figure that there'll be more of them than there are of us.
You know what? I'm not looking at it like that because I'm Jewish, and Jewish families, religious families, you have as many kids as you have because you're not supposed to. Well, like I said, I'm not religious, but I do know a lot of religious people, and you're not supposed to have relations without actually producing a child. So Jewish families have, up to 10, 11 kids. So I mean, listen, I mean, people want to have kids. People want to have kids at their own home, at their own expense, at their own culture. Let them have kids. I mean, I don't get into these conversations. I don't get into these discussions. I wanted to ask you: are we going to talk about some of the whatever you want to call them? I call them scandals.
Yes,
We
we're
have seen.
about to go to the scandals, but I just
Excellent,
want to
excellent.
tell you one thing.
Yes.
When you talk about where these clinics are, in West Palm Beach, we had two clinics,
Okay.
and one was adjacent to Embassy Drive, which at one time was probably the second nicest street in West Palm Beach. The nicest one was on the water. Okay.
Okay.
And the other clinic was in a very middle class neighborhood called the Villages. Okay. Well, over time, I hate to say this, but those areas became impoverished. The demographics of those neighborhoods changed.
Okay.
And you still have those clinics there to this day. So they started out with people with a few dollars, and
Hmm.
they've ended up being in a place with the people with not very many dollars. So they didn't really put the clinics in a bad neighborhood
Okay.
to begin with. But anyway,
All right. Listen. I mean.
Jake, I want to go into scandals because I still want to make some comparisons
Oh,
between what goes on in Russia and what goes on in the United States. So let's turn to the Internal Revenue Service, okay? We have a situation where apparently a group of Internal Revenue Service agents in Cincinnati, I
oh,
don't know why Cincinnati, but that must be the office where they scrutinize charitable organizations, okay? That's all I know. And apparently they have looked at groups with the word Tea Party in them and some other words that indicate that, or patriot, and maybe a few other words that indicate that the group is conservative. And as a Democrat, I thought that over the last week it would come out that they had also looked possibly at other charitable organizations which were also engaged in political activity. But it didn't turn out that way. It seems that they only looked at organizations which you would assume, if you're not living in a cave, if you're actually living in America on a day-to-day basis, you would know that they have a conservative side to them. Okay.
Well, you don't have to assume. It's right there in black and white.
Okay. Now I will tell you one thing. I don't think that they looked at these groups, but Patriot Majority USA, you'll never believe this, it is a liberal group, and Citizens for Strength and Security Fund is a liberal group.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the groups.
It's funny. So I'm not exactly sure how they figured it out, but they seem to have done that. Now on Friday, a fellow from the Treasury Department went in front of Congress and he had been asked 3 questions. And the questions were, was this apparently a partisan effort? And he said yes. And the second question was, did they only target conservative groups? And he said yes. Without any qualifications, he simply gave a yes. He gave a statement before he answered the question. And then the third question was in the same vein. Okay? He answered yes.
Okay.
He agreed. No qualms about it. And of course, he's just a guy that works for the Treasury Department. The Secretary of the Treasury tells him things, and the President tells the Secretary things. But they didn't even try to avoid the question. They said yes, yes, and yes. Okay.
Interesting, right? I mean,
yes.
considering that maybe he's a patsy for all this.
No. He was just some guy who did a little internal investigation by going to the other investigators, and he put it together himself. No, he had nothing to do with anything. He's from a completely different department. That's why they sent him out. Okay. So he has nothing to do with anything. His fingerprints aren't anywhere. Okay. So we have this IRS scandal. Now, I know that you're not a big fan of President Obama, so I'm going to ask you right off. Do you think that President Obama is responsible for this?
Okay, James, I'll tell you what I wrote yesterday on my Facebook page, and you tell me if he's responsible or not.
Okay.
Now, if the President of the United States tells you that he heard about it on the news just like everybody else, there are 3 reasons that he's probably saying that. 1, he's stupid, and we know Obama is not stupid. 2, he's incompetent, and that we know he is because he stepped into the office without any experience in politics mostly, or any private sector or any job. And 3, he's lying. And we know that Obama is lying because if he's the president of the United States, do you remember one time there was an incident during the Reagan administration? I believe it was in Beirut. And they asked President Reagan, who's responsible for this? He goes, I am, because I'm a commander-in-chief. Reagan took responsibility for everything because that's what the man does. If you're in charge of something, you either take responsibility or you're incompetent. Now, if you're that incompetent that you heard about it on the news like everybody else, that means one thing, you're lying. Why would you lie about something instead of coming up and saying, I heard about it, but I wasn't sure what it is at least? The man completely denied any knowledge of that. That tells me one thing. He's involved in some capacity, just like any other scandal. And I'm going to bring other scandals into this because it's relevant.
No, let's stick with this scandal. I'm not going to scandals.
Wait, one second. Yeah. I'm going to explain to you why. Other scandals, Obama did 2 things. First, he said he doesn't know anything about it. And then he would try to defend it in some cases with executive orders. Why would a man that has no knowledge of something defend something with executive orders? That means he's defending somebody like himself. That means he is involved. Because why would you defend something you have no knowledge about? That means you're involved. You're defending something, you're involved. Okay? So this scandal with IRS, first of all, it wasn't just a Cincinnati office, but let's say it is. And let's say this is, I don't know why this office specifically, but the person who was actually mostly involved, that woman that they brought up to ask because she was in charge at the time, she's actually was supposed to head Obamacare oversight. Now she's in charge of a country's biggest program, and she's the one that was in charge of this scandal when it first started. Because the scandal started, if I'm not mistaken, in 2009 or 2010. Okay, they just sort of found out about it now, and they never talked about it until what was brought up. Now, you said some of those groups were actually liberal groups. Listen, I don't know. I don't know every group that was involved, but they strictly.
No. I'm not saying that they went after
No.
those. It's just that you
Right.
can't always judge a group by its name.
No, you can't. You can't judge the book by its cover. I agree.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was very specific, very government controlled outreach, and it was completely shown what this administration and people involved in this administration will do. For example, James, you know that Jay Carney last week tried to blame it on Bush, and then he said something like, this is independent organization, but the appointees in this scandal are people that Bush put in place. Are you serious? You're going to put independent and Bush in the same sentence, and then you're going to try to play it off? I mean, Jay Carney is probably the most incompetent person that they ever put as a Speaker of White House. I mean, if he doesn't have an answer, he doesn't answer the question. He says, ha, more times than I heard anybody do without teleprompter. And this guy is just incompetent to serve the job that he serves. He is clueless, and when he's not helping the Obama administration. He's actually helping the Republican Party.
Okay.
He's like a
can I
I don't know what to call it.
Can I
like
stop
he's
there?
closer to his own goals.
Okay. I have I have one question for you. In law, we have basically two types of evidence. We have circumstantial evidence, where you throw out a fact and you make an inference from the fact that somebody did something. Okay? All right.
Okay.
But you have to make an inference. And you've given me, in my humble opinion, some circumstantial evidence here today.
Okay.
Then there's direct evidence, such as eyewitness testimony. I saw Joe Schmo pull the trigger and murder the person right in front of me. That's direct evidence.
Okay.
Do you tell me all the direct evidence you have that President Obama knew about this partisan effort to go after conservative groups? Give me all the direct evidence.
I'm not. Listen, I can't give you direct evidence. I have no direct evidence. But if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck. It's Obama involved in some scandal. I mean, how many scandals do we need for this man to say he didn't know about as a commander in chief, and then try to defend, for us to actually see that this man is actually involved in every one of those scandals? Because if he's not involved, what kind of commander in chief is he that he doesn't know anything about? He actually watched the news to learn like everybody else, like a Josh Moore? Seriously.
Okay, now my second question is this. I realize that Mr. Putin runs things a little more with an iron hand, okay, than maybe presidents of the United States run things. Do you know whether, obviously they have a tax program over in Russia, and I think they have a tax program in Ukraine, okay? And people are supposed to pay taxes. I don't know I think a lot of them do pay taxes. And I think Mr. Khodorkovsky went to jail for something to do with evading taxes. And I think Mr. Magnitsky was investigating somebody avoiding $230 million in taxes or something along those lines. So taxes are a bit of an issue in Russia and the Russian world, okay? Do you know, and you can, if you don't know, that's fine, whether in the Russian world the taxing authorities are used as a political tool?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you because I read about Russia just like you. I mean, sometimes I hear more because like somebody read some Russian source or anything like that. But I honestly couldn't tell you.
Well,
And
the Khodorkovsky case seems to have a tinge to it.
another thing, can I add something to what I said before? I apologize.
Sure,
I
sure.
didn't mean to interrupt you or change the topic back, but let me ask you a question.
Yes.
As a American, forget about liberal Democrat, forget about me being a conservative Republican. As an American, do you have faith in a person who's not competent enough to see? Let's say Obama is not involved. Let's give him benefit of a doubt for a second. Let's say he's not involved in any of this. Do you have confidence in a man who's not competent enough to see all these scandals going on around him and he's clueless? Now, doesn't it make you fear that this man is not up to the task? I mean, as an American, would you give your comfort to a person to protect you as an American in the world and speak if he's so incompetent? Honestly, like, let's say he's not involved, he's completely innocent in all of the scandals. I mean, but he has no clue and he had to watch it on TV. How confident are you that you want a man like that representing you and your country? You tell me.
I'm ready. It's a very, very simple answer.
Okay.
The bureaucracy in America is huge. We have, I don't know, how many cabinet secretaries do we have? Maybe a dozen? I don't know. We have so many departments and sub-departments and sub-sub-departments. And then we have a huge military. The Pentagon has all sorts of dramas and tragedies that play out in the inner workings of the Pentagon every single day.
Okay.
You have the hawks and the doves, the neocons and the liberals. Oh my God. How is it humanly possible for any president to know about this? Now, Ronald Reagan said that he didn't know about Iran-Contra. We're against congressional authority. We sold arms to Iran, and against congressional authority, we took the proceeds from the arms sales and gave them to the people who oppose communism in Nicaragua. He said he didn't know.
Okay, listen. Ronald Reagan took blame. He took responsibility. Let's forget about blame.
Not for Iran-Contra, he didn't. Not for Iran-Contra.
You know what? I don't remember. All I remember is that recently I read somewhere that Ronald Reagan took responsibility as a commander-in-chief because he's supposed to know. As a competent president, you're supposed to know at least about one of those scandals that you're defending. Now, Obama is very quick to defend everybody involved in the scandal, but he never knows anything about them. He's clueless on Benghazi. He's clueless on Fast and Furious. He's clueless on Associated Press attack. Now, did you realize that now even liberal media is scared to talk to the White House? And even liberal media like Piers Morgan and Joe from Morning Joe show, I can't pronounce his last name, they're speaking out that maybe this administration, this government is the tyranny that the Second Amendment is talking about. I mean, think about it. If the left-wing media turns on you when they've been praising you for the past 5 years, they definitely have something to talk about, don't they?
But before we go to Benghazi, I just want you to do one thing for me. Okay. After the show is over, go to Iran-Contra on Wikipedia. Okay. Mr. Reagan said 130 times, I don't recall, when they took his deposition. Okay,
fine.
Not take responsibility, and you can't get more clueless than that.
Wait, let me put it in your perspective. So Reagan, in one incident, did not know, and you call him clueless. And here Obama has all these scandals around him, and you say, how can the president of the United States know anything that's going on? Because God forbid he has like 4, 5, 6, 7 scandals, and he is clueless as the president of the United States. Ronald Reagan did take responsibility for most actions. I will look up this Iran issue because I don't remember, but I'll tell you. I mean, Ronald Reagan, you put him against Obama's presidency, he's a man. Obama is a finger pointer. He's a finger pointer. He's like a kindergarten bully that says, "Oh, I didn't do it. Maybe they did it." And when it turns back on him, what does he do? He issues executive orders. to protect himself and others.
Jake, the government is so big, there is no humanly possible way that a president could know what was happening in the Cincinnati IRS office.
So Reagan,
it's humanly impossible.
But you just said that Reagan was clueless, but Obama is humanly impossible. The language you use for two men, at least let's keep the language the same. I mean, listen, President Nixon, they took the man down with a scandal, one scandal. Was he involved? They never proved he was involved. He stepped down because he didn't want the embarrassment. And he was probably involved. I mean, I'm not defending the man, but let's not defend anybody in this case.
There's one little difference, Jake.
Oh, what's the difference? Nobody died during Nixon?
There are 10 depositions where people say that Reagan had conversations about Iran-Contra in the Oval Office. That's direct evidence.
Listen, there is a lot of direct evidence that points to Obama also, but
no direct.
Oh, of course, because this presidency attacks media. This presidency attacks anybody that speaks against it. Did you realize that every time you have any article with some proof that's on the internet, you can find it in 2 days? You can find it because they scrub the internet. They try to polish it that Obama is this saint that walked into the White House and Republicans just blaming him for everything.
That's okay. I have a question for you.
Let me finish this thought. Okay. Do you realize that Nancy Pelosi had chutzpah to say that we have more important things and Republicans are trying to use this as a political pawn? I mean, Nancy Pelosi, one of the most corrupt people in government today, she says that Republicans are using this as a pawn when we have all these scandals and we just want an answer. We want an answer from a man who defends something that he has no idea about. Why would you defend something if you have no idea about it?
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
If maybe you know, maybe you can guess, or maybe you'll just tell me you can't. Of the people of the Russian American community, do you think more of them vote Republican than Democrat?
I'll tell you right away. Russian Jews in about maybe 85% vote Republican. I'll tell you why. I actually talk about it in my book, which we're gonna mention, I hope. Russian Jews, they ran away from a society that's socialist. Now, a lot of Democrat policies, especially lately, they're not even Democrat policies. They scare most of us because they remind us of what we left behind. So yes, my answer is yes, that most of the majority of Russian Jews, I can't speak for all the Russians in America, but Russian Jews, immigrants, first-generation immigrants, about 85%, maybe even more, vote Republican.
Okay, let's go to Benghazi. Benghazi is a situation, I guess Benghazi's in Libya, all right?
Yes.
I barely even know where the place is. And I guess it's sort of a secondary outpost to Tripoli, okay?
Okay.
It's not like the capital. And as we all know, an attack, and we're going to talk about how to characterize the attack, but there was an attack on the embassy and they burned the place up, and 4 people connected to the embassy died, including, I guess, an ambassador from the United States. Okay. There seem to be 2 components to the Benghazi tragedy. Number one, whether the government and the State Department had provided proper security in the first place for this building in Benghazi. And then there's the second part of this, whether the administration had tried to characterize it as a spontaneous uprising, when in fact, and I think today it's borne out, it was a terrorist activity, and whether the administration had done that so that Mr. Trump in the presidential campaign could not criticize the administration for having allowed a terrorist attack. Okay, I think that's pretty good summation.
It's a pretty decent summation, yes.
Yes, of the Benghazi situation. Okay. Now, they've produced, I think, just about all of the emails. And yes, Mr. Petraeus, who I think is a jerk, and I'm glad he's out of government, he was all over the talking points and how to characterize it and everything. And there were some people from the State Department that were all over it, but they don't seem to have any emails trying to change the talking points from the White House. Do you know of any direct evidence that points to President Obama having fault with security or fault with how the situation was characterized, keeping in mind that on the third day afterwards, he did go on the air and call it a terrorist activity?
He did not. He did not. That's a lie. I'm
Oh,
sorry. I'm not calling you a liar. I'm calling whoever you told you or you heard is a liar.
Candy Crawley. She said it right in the Romney-Obama debate.
Candy Crawley was not a moderator. She was a referee. She was like a coach to Obama administration and their debate. Come on, Candy Crawley. I mean, seriously? I mean, no, James. Listen. You summarized it well until the end. You had me. Obama administration, are they directly involved? Well, let me see. Let me start from saying words from Panetta. Panetta said that did you speak to the president about the attack? He says president was aware of the situation, of the danger of the situation before the night was up. Now they asked, did you speak to the president again? And he said, no, we did not have communication through the night because Obama went to sleep. He went to sleep. Now, they called it, they said, let's not jump to conclusions, but they called it right away. They arrested the guy on the First Amendment rights. They arrested the guy who made the video, this cheesy video that probably nobody would ever see, and now they gave it so many views because they talked about it. Now,
No. Tell me more about this video. You lost me with this video.
This video was just a cheesy, goofy.
What did the video show? I'm not familiar with this.
You know what? I didn't see the full video. It made some fun of Islam. I mean, it was a stupid video. Nobody cared about the video.
Oh, yes, I know that video.
Okay.
I know it. Yeah,
all right. So anyway, it was the guy's First Amendment right to make the video. It was the cheesiest, stupidest video that nobody would.
Jake, we lost the connection there for a few seconds between beautiful Miami, Florida, and I hope beautiful New Jersey. They call it the Garden State. So please continue with what you were saying. I think you were talking about that anti-Islamic video.
Okay. So now they were quick. I don't know where it cut me off, so I'm gonna just quickly summarize. They were quick to say, let's not jump to conclusions, but they also called it spontaneous rallies due to the video, a video that basically insults Islam, the video that nobody ever actually saw. They had Susan Rice go on every channel and talk about the video. Now, I'm not blaming Susan Rice directly, but Susan Rice had to know that she's talking about something that they have no idea about. Now, they called Republicans that they're politicizing, that they're woman haters, that they're racist for commenting on Susan Rice. Now, when Condoleezza Rice was totally turned on anything she said, everything was fine because they called her a liar, they called her anything. But as soon as you touched the subject of Susan Rice, two things came up. You were a woman hater and you were a racist. Right away. Al Sharpton talked about it, everybody talked about it. But let me get back to Obama administration. Here's the facts. You asked me to give you facts as we're in the law office, so I'll tell you facts. Every nationality, every nation pulled their ambassadors because it was deemed a dangerous situation. It was deemed as a danger zone. Every nation pulled their embassies out of there a couple of weeks before. Britain said that they pulled their people way before, like couple of 2-3 weeks before that. Red Cross moved out of there at least, maybe more, at least a week prior to this attack. Everybody knew it's a dangerous situation. Now, why didn't we pull these people out? Well, here's something that I'm gonna say, and you can say that I might be bringing up something, but I saw a lot of investigative reports, and they were holding a lot of water. It was not just a spontaneous attack. It was a gun-riding show from us to the rebels who are Al-Qaeda, who are Syrian rebels. Now, you can laugh at me, you can say that, but I saw a lot of reports that say to that fact. Why didn't we pull those people? Because I have a feeling that somehow we were involved in running guns, just like we did in Mexican Fast and Furious, to rebels, to help the rebels in the Syrian situation.
Okay, let me ask you a question, which I've always wondered about. The United States has had a number of attacks on its embassies, including in Africa when Mr. bin Laden set off some bombs in front of some embassies. How come American embassies get bombed and burned up quite often in relative terms, and Russian embassies never get bombed? Why is that?
Well, if you notice, I mean, the way Russia does things, they don't go for political discussions and they don't go for approval of the world. If you do anything, like look at Chechnya, anytime Chechnya does anything to Russia, Russia just moves the tanks and bombs the hell out of them. I mean, whether it's right or wrong, it protects them from further attacks. I mean, listen, if you bully me, I'll bully you back, and then we stop the bullying. I mean, I don't agree completely that it's a right tactic in the world, but Russia didn't have to deal with as many problems as we do in that effect. Do you agree?
I agree, but you said something interesting a few seconds ago, and you may be right. I don't know. I think everybody agrees with you. I mean, everybody agrees that the attack on Benghazi was a terrorist attack. It was not a spontaneous uprising. Everybody agrees with that. But you mentioned something interesting, that there might be a Syrian Al-Qaeda connection, but you mentioned the word Syria. According to news reports recently, last week, Russia sent something called anti-ship missiles. I'm not sure what that is, to Syria. So they seem to be getting a little bit involved with arms shipments also. Did you know that Syria has the only Russian naval base outside of the former Soviet Union? It's the only country with a Russian naval base outside of what used to be the Soviet Union.
I'm not surprised, because I remember even being in the Soviet Union, Russia's been a big supporter of Syria at the time, and I'm not surprised, but no, I was not aware that it's the only one outside of.
Why do you think Russia supports the Assad government? Why is that?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know. It might be a political ploy. I honestly don't know, because they did support Syria even when Syria was completely trying to demolish Israel. They supported Syria through many different tasks. So maybe they have some kind of a political agenda or political relationship between the two.
Yes, I was going to say that. Syria has never been known to be a terrific friend of Israel, especially, what is it, the Golan Heights and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely supported Syria throughout this, and I heard Syria many times growing up, and I honestly do not recall why they were such a strong supporter. Maybe they were because America supports Israel and Russia kind of send their Jews off to Israel in a way. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say things I don't know. But wait, let me touch up on this.
I want to go to another scandal before we leave.
1 second. Yes,
okay,
1 second.
Let's go to this other scandal.
No, 1 second. Let me just chime in something. Obama administration, honestly, it took Obama until September 26th, if I recall correctly. I actually saw it recently, last week. 26th to finally say it's a terrorist attack. I mean, seriously,
how many days was that? How many days was that? I don't even know.
That's at least 2 weeks. That's at least 2 weeks. Okay, so I mean, I just want to be clear. Wait, this is the man that apologizes for a soldier that does something in the line of duty. Immediately, he jumps to conclusion apologizing for our soldiers, for our nation, but he cannot call terrorist attack a terrorist attack when it actually happens. It's sad. It's sad.
He did call it with you. According to you, he called it 2 weeks later. Is that
2 weeks later?
Okay.
He did not call it. He called it. He said we cannot jump to conclusions. It was a dangerous situation. We don't know what happened. And he probably watched it on TV like everybody else.
You don't want presidents to go around making statements before
No, but listen, wait. If you have okay, let's talk about this for a second. If you have a guy shooting 13 soldiers in the naval base and screaming Allah Akbar, and you say let's not jump to conclusions, but then you call our soldier names that shot 16 Afghans because he went nuts and he lost it because he served 4 tours, and right away you call him names and you apologize to Afghanistan government. I mean, I don't know what kind of president you are, but you're definitely not serving America, because Allah Akbar, according to me, is Islamic term. And when somebody starts shooting and screams out Allah Akbar, I call it a terrorist. Obama couldn't call Hassan, even up to now. He calls it a work-related incident.
Well, in Russia, what do they call the Chechens? Terrorists, or
they call them terrorists?
Not insurgents. They call them terrorists.
They call them terrorists. If they take over a school and they make some demands, they call them terrorists.
Well, you know, that's been one of Mr. Putin's biggest complaints about the Western media. He says you call the fighters in Chechnya terrorists, insurgents, and I call them terrorists because that's what they are.
Because Putin might not be somebody you and I might agree with. Putin might be an animal of his own, but at least he has common sense. Okay. How to defend his people.
And he has used rather savage methods to deal with Chechnya.
Well, let me ask you a question. How do you think somebody becomes a head of KGB? Not by baking a pie. This guy had to step on quite a few toes. I mean, so this guy is as savage as they come. He's a head of KGB. I mean, he had to earn that right. He had to earn that.
Well, Jake, we have an old saying in the United States. You ready?
Yeah.
Nice guys finish last, okay?
Oh, Obama is not a nice guy. Obama is just either very ignorant guy, or he just has a different agenda for America. I was
talking about Mr. Putin. You can't get to be the head of the KGB by being a nice guy.
Yeah, listen, Putin is as vicious as they come, and he earned that right. It's just like being a head of a mafia family. You don't just get to be a head of a mafia family by baking cookies, you know? I mean, you don't. I mean,
well, how come he gets to get away with calling people Islamic terrorists, and if President Obama does it, the world goes crazy?
Well, that's a $1 million question. Why does American president is questioned and looked through the looking glass a lot more than anybody else? Because we're the superpower, we're the greatest nation in the world. And you said you don't like American exceptionalism term, but I think we're an exceptional nation. Okay. We're not a police nation in the world. We're actually a leader in the world. And that's why we're put on a different standard. See, Russia used to be a superpower in the communist world, and we were a superpower in the capitalistic world. Now Russia is not seen like that, but they're still a superpower, and I don't know why they're not put on the same standard.
Jake, I have to cut you off there. We've come to the end of the hour. I'd love to do another show with you on Thursday because we only hit a few of the scandals. There are so many scandals, Jake. You and I could have a show a day on scandals, okay? And somehow we could connect them to Russia. But I want to say to all of our friends, Das Vidanya. We thank everybody for listening, and we hope that you tune in again. And Jake, thank you very, very much for coming on the show. What is the name of your book?
It's AfterTastes and Tales from Russia. AfterTastes and Tales from Russia.
AfterTastes and Tales from Russia. Okay, Jake, thank you. Paka.
i-netradio.com. i-netradio.com.